Hi, I'm Jim Callari. I'm the editorial director of Plastics Technology Magazine, and joining me once again today is Kevin Huntsman. Kevin is the president of marketing research firm Mastio and Company. Now, over the last 2 months or so, Kevin and I have been discussing the top 10 markets for polyethylene film. And these discussions are based on research that Mastio concluded last year on the polyethylene film market. You can see all 10 of these videos on our various social media channels on YouTube, on the Plastics Technology LinkedIn page, and on my personal LinkedIn page at Jim Callari. Also, if you subscribe to the Plastics Technology e-newsletter, you're going to be seeing these videos over the next couple of months. Anyway, now that we are concluded with the top 10 biggest markets for polyethylene film, I thought we could have a discussion on the fastest growing market for polyethylene film. This will be the last installment in our video series. And Kevin, that, as I understand your research indicated, is e-commerce, which in a way is not surprising. A lot of people get things shipped to their homes these days, order online. So, what can you tell me about the polyethylene film market for e-commerce?
Well, first off, hi, Jim, and thank you for the opportunity to do the 10 videos and to wrap up with what I think is a pretty exciting market, with it also being the highest growth market. We call it the e-commerce film envelopes and mailers. It's a legacy chapter with the envelopes and mailers name, Jim. And
Mhm.
this time around, we obviously integrated, and the first piece of this is the e-commerce film, given how much growth there is. That's really driving the growth of this market overall. It's an interesting market growth rate of almost 6%. Average annual growth rate pulling it in. And if you were to pull out just the e-commerce film, it's a little bit higher. Uh,
Mhm.
Obviously, you think about Amazon and all the growth there as we were in the pandemic and coming out. Those numbers
Right.
have not subsided much. It's an interesting market. It's a little over right around 350 million pound market, Jim. Uh, Interesting with just who the players are when you think about Amazon obviously being a key component of all of this, and not just a key component in using so much of these different e-commerce packages, but just their push into sustainability and what they're trying to do from an environmental perspective as well, Jim.
So their push to sustainability, if I understand correctly, Amazon is at least talking, if not implementing, going back to paper for some applications. Has that shown up in your research at all?
We did see feedback and comments about that. It's an interesting almost dichotomy, if you will, with them talking about that. And then my dear wife buys a lot from Amazon, so I love seeing the packages, because she makes fun of me because what are you looking at the packaging for? What I do? So I
Right.
have to. But you're seeing things too that even in the boxes. And we received a package the other day that was just wrapped in a clear film. It had no box around it, Jim.
Right.
So Amazon talks about both things, so it's interesting to see what they do. Obviously, lightweight is a key, especially with increased rates from FedEx, UPS, and the U.S. Postal Services. And
Right.
given the recent union negotiations with UPS, those rates aren't going to go down anytime soon. So, how can you leverage a lighter weight option to decrease, especially for those Prime members? Let's say for Amazon, that's a
Right.
significant expense. So, you do see the cardboard, the paper piece of it, but I think the plastics component of it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah. Anything jump out at you in your research on materials trends?
Not necessarily. I mean, when you think about it, it's about a 90% blown market, about 10% cast. When we think about just the construction of it, it's about almost 90% coax. Um,
Really?
yeah, which kind of surprised us. We really thought that would not be that it wouldn't be the case. But we saw a
Yeah.
lot of coax packaging here, and I think some of that may have to do too, Jim, with some of this growth with just the packaging over the product itself.
Hmm.
A mono layer would tear too easily in transit. So I
Hmm.
think there's some more growth that comes into that piece of it when we think about it from the construction side. When we think about it from the polymers themselves, Jim, it's about 66% linear low. And then we've got quite a bit of LDP, a homopolymer, and obviously some high density, but quite a bit of PCR as well. So
Right.
when we think about these drives from a more sustainable option, obviously PCR is going to be a major component of that sustainable component to Amazon's goals and others.
Right.
I mentioned only Amazon. They're obviously not the only one. My wife uses Wayfair quite a bit as well, and we see the same type of packaging, the same mentality when approaching the sustainable options.
Hmm. Well, it's good that your wife is keeping Mastio and Company in business. So,
But hey, we're keeping the economy going, Jim.
one of the things that was a recurring theme when we talked about the top 10 largest film markets was that they generally tended to be dominated by 5 or 6 or 7 players.
Not,
Most
not
of the time, not the case in this market.
Not necessarily as much. I mean, you're looking at the top five and probably have close to 50% of the market.
Yeah,
But as
that's
you mentioned a
correct.
moment ago, in many instances, Jim, the top five had 70+%
Right.
of the market. So
Yeah.
we see a little bit more variability. Obviously, very global is number one, as they are in many markets that we profile. But you've got Sealed Air, which is a pretty big player in this market as well. And then you get into like Charter Next Generation, they're up there as well. But then from there, it starts to go in more of the single digit market share. So I think there's opportunities here when we think about companies with barriers to entry, which when we've talked about a lot of the others, it's quite difficult.
Right.
But we do see a little bit more variability relative to the number of participants that are in this market.
Yep. Kevin, I appreciate your insights into this market and into the other markets that we have covered in this series. And I know you don't do this study every year, but I'm looking forward to talking to you again the next time you do it. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Jim. We appreciate it, sir.